This weekend, me and my friends went to a long-anticipated small niche Goa festival on the beach of Den Haag in the Netherlands. It was our first time rolling with LSD, but not our first time using psychedelics. We have experience with psilocybin, Pitocin, MDMA, salvia, THC, and alcohol. The festival was a small 30 by 30 meter fenced venue on the beach. It was a beautifully decorated and people were terrific. The party started at 8 o'clock and ended at 4 a.m. I am used to techno raves that last upwards of 8 in the morning, so I was a bit worried that the party was too short. This would later turn out to not be the case. We took our blotters around 9:30 after exploring the venue and getting to know the crowd. After almost losing our blotters in the wind, we put them under our tongues, held them there for about 30 minutes. Once the body high started to come on, we started dancing. Not long after we hit the dance floor, we started to notice fractals in our vision similar to what we saw with Pitocin. This is where things started to speed up. Around this time was a pretty sudden shift in my mental state as I became a new, fresh, clean slate. My friends and I almost completely forgot where we were and more importantly why. This turned out to be very frightening and was something we battled with the entire trip. It felt as if someone dropped us off in a new dimension and told us to find a way to survive. The hallucinations were absolutely overwhelming. It was like we were on a completely different planet. The sand turned into faces and hands emerged out of the ground, holding on to people's feet as they walked around. Whilst dancing, someone in the crowd pointed at the ground, presumably to show someone something. I looked at where he pointed and a giant snake slithered over the ground and through my feet, after which it disappeared in the crowd. After dancing for a little while, the sun had set and we went to sit down to take rest whilst looking at people dancing with fire poi. After talking and discussing for a while about where we were and what we were supposed to do, we eventually stood up again. We decided we would try to get some water, but we quickly noticed that this would be a bigger challenge than we anticipated. Our minds didn't work like they were supposed to. Simple tasks became impossible to complete, and planning our trip to the toilet felt like an impossible feat. The toilets in which we could refill our bottles were inside the beach bar that the festival was built around. This meant we would have to somehow go inside the busy bar and figure out how to get the toilet and pay for entry. The problem was that we were almost completely unable to communicate using normal language. All our communication inside our group went through abstract concepts and felt like telepathy, so communicating properly with people outside the group felt impossible. After what felt like 20 minutes of planning, which turned out to really be 4 minutes, we decided that me and a friend of mine would embark on a trip to the toilets. We walked into the brightly lit bar and we quickly found ourselves in the middle of a room full of people. It was very overwhelming. The room was completely different from when we did our exploration before taking the LSD. The walls were morphing, the table legs had turned into literal arms and legs, and the faces of people inside turned into animals and monsters. After a couple of attempts going in and out of the room, we finally fully committed and managed to find the entrance to the toilet. We tried to pay for the toilet pass, but the lady just let us through without. This was a big step for us to get comfortable in our new state of existence. After this act of kindness, the people felt and looked way less scary. After getting the water, we walked back to the group and started planning on what to do next. At this point, we checked the time, thinking we were already a couple of hours in. This turned out to not be the case, as it was only a little over an hour since ingestion. Our sense of time was completely out of whack. It was obvious to us that the party lasting till 4 was more than enough. One of the things I brought with me was a set of light poi. I had only been practicing for a few weeks, so wasn't very good. And because my mind was all whack, I expected to not be able to use them, but I was pleasantly surprised when I was able to control the poi way better than I was when I was sober. I was able to really feel and predict the flow of the poi, and I had full control over my arms independently. Unlike muscle memory, I had full control over both my arms as if my brain split in two. Dancing with poi was one of the most freeing feelings I ever felt. With about 2 hours left of the party, we finally started to understand where we were, how the crowd worked, and what our place and goal was. It felt like we were characters in a movie overcoming an obstacle, like we had a little mini life, born into this alien world and trying to find our place. We had moments of pure euphoria and utter hell. It was an adventure like no other. The come down was pleasant but very, very long. We had to go back to the train station, but because the trams only drove later and because we didn't understand how they worked, we decided to walk. We walked for 2 hours, which was about 9 kilometers. Den Haag is already one of the prettiest cities in the Netherlands, but because of the LSD, we were able to see details we would have never noticed or appreciated otherwise. It was now 11 hours after ingestion and shit was still melting. I had no idea this stuff lasted this long. I knew LSD trips take long, but we at least thought it would get much less after 11 hours, but the visuals and body load were still very heavy. I don't know if this is normal, but it might be because of the extra step 1P LSD takes to turn into LSD. After the 2-hour train ride, we were finally home, but to our surprise, 13 hours later, we were still tripping. It had definitely become a lot less and we were able to think a lot more clearly, but we were still seeing both open and closed-eyed visuals. Luckily, I had no problem falling asleep, and after waking up 5 hours later, the trip was finally over. That was today's trip report on Third Eye Chronicles. If you enjoyed the journey, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next trip.